Hey folks, it's your girl Lexi Mahari, and I am back with another episode of Buzzworthy Chit Chat, where I like to share my opinion on the latest pop culture news, current events, reality and scripted television reviews, and so much more. But before we dive in, please take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified each time I upload a brand new video. In this episode, we are reviewing the Belle Collective Season 2, Episode 4, Heir Wars. If you are new to the channel, here's what you need to know. While I am not going to recap the entire episode frame by frame, I am going to share my top 3 moments of this week's episode. If you watched the episode, I want to hear from you in the comments below. Do you agree with my picks, or do you have others that stood out to you? While you ponder that question, let's get into it. Here are my top 3 moments of this week's episode. So I'm going to give my top 3 moment to the conversation between Lateshia and Marie. So Marie is visiting Lateshia for the first time since the last Women's Empowerment Brunch, and she's basically come to let her friend know that she will no longer be attending the brunches. At the end of the day, she's not finding these brunches to be empowering for her because she's got beef with one of the individuals who are attending, and that being Latrice. The reason she has that beef with this person is she feels that this person came for her business and, potentially said some things that were harmful for her that could have easily led to her being accused of fraud, by Medicaid and or Medicare. And of course, if you don't know, you never want to be accused by the government of fraud for anything, right? Significant fines, it can be jail time, you can lose your license. So Marie, is justifiably upset with Latrice about what she perceived her to have done to her. Now, I've got my own opinions about that on some scales because unfortunately, if you watched the first season, Marie came into the brunch with her own, I think, drama and things that could have easily damaged Latrice's brand as related to her wigs and calling into question the quality of the wigs. She may not have some of the same risks that Marie has as a licensed professional who is delivering a healthcare service, but nonetheless, you're still looking at potentially damaging someone's monetary income with your comments. So, I don't know. It could have been tit for tat, but I don't know. I don't know that Latrice actually did the things that she's accusing her of doing. Maybe we'll find out more later in the season. But nonetheless, getting back to this moment of the night, Marie has smartly determined that it is not in anyone's best interest for her to continue to attend the empowerment brunch. But I'm curious to know what you would do. Would you keep going to, putting yourself in these situations that could prove, disruptive or damaging to yourself, your reputation, and or that of your friends' reputation since they keep inviting you into these situations? So my number 2 moment of this episode is two-pronged, and both center around Akeisha. Let's start with Akeisha and Willie. Willie is Akeisha's husband. Their dynamic is kind of interesting. You can tell that she has definitely been very supportive of him and his career and his endeavors, and he seems as though he wants to be supportive of, her project here on Fair Street, in which she is trying to, I think, kind of work in the same vein alongside Lateshia to revive this street. And so at the opening of the episode, we see Lateshia and Akeisha walking down Fair Street, pointing out some historical aspects of the street, I think how their families were or were not involved, what the street meant to the people of Jackson, and they, I think, trade resumes as it relates to who knows more about this street, and clearly Lateshia is bothered by Akeisha and perhaps her more aggressive style of pointing out what it is she thinks she knows about the street, and the fact that she was married in the church. And I can actually see Lateshia's standpoint on this one, that it was a bit much. I think at one point she cut Lateshia off. Now, on the other end of that, I think Lateshia also is dealing with some I think I want to think of how to phrase this. I don't want to say that she's intimidated by Akeisha, but I think she definitely may perceive her as a threat on some levels. And so that's why we get these side comments about Akeisha and her style and how she approaches things. And they're both going to be very strong personalities, and they're going to have to figure out how to best work together. And it may be that they both have different projects within this project in order to get things done, in my opinion. I don't know how they're going to collaborate and work through, let's say, the same project together, if that makes sense, within this project. So I think they're going to both have to maybe carve out their own lanes and just work down those lanes individually and just meet in the middle periodically to assess how well things are progressing on the collective, right? So because they're just, I think, are going to butt heads. Now, what I think is really crazy is Lateshia's comment that she was going to bring in Marie to this project. I just don't understand why she would do that, given what we know about Marie's tendency to disrupt any of the work that Lateshia is doing, whether intentional or not intentional. I think that, Marie can still be her friend. She can still love on Marie, but maybe keep her out of this work that she is trying to do, because so far it has not bode well for her. If we even go back to last season when she invited that person into their brunch, he was less than impressed, because that was yet another situation where Marie got into it with someone. And so here we are again. She's working with Akeisha and she's talking about bringing Marie into the project. And Akeisha, rightfully so, is like, can we first figure out how well we're going to work together before we involve a third party? And I agree with her, which shows us how astute Akeisha is, actually. But I digress. I think that these two ladies need to first figure out how they're going to work together without involving a third party who really does not have the temperament to navigate an Akeisha. I'm just going to say it the way it is. I think Akeisha is very strong. And so I think this is something that really needs to remain between her and Lateshia. Now, the second half of my Akeisha moment here is actually between her and Willie. It seems Willie has been kidnapped, hijacked, and potentially even hoodwinked on some levels and brought down to Jackson, Mississippi from their Jersey home. Now, it does appear they had some conversations, as it relates to this project and what it is Akeisha wants to do. But on the other half of that, I don't think Willie has thought through the commitment maybe that Akeisha is going to have to make to this project. As she has indicated, they have plans to sink millions into this work. And I could see that, based on how the street looks. One thing Akeisha has working in her favor is that her family owns this building down there. But, in order to really revitalize the area and bring it back to what it perhaps once was, they are going to definitely be dealing with some pretty significant challenges. So she is going to have to be there for a considerable amount of time. And so I was actually team Akeisha in the investment arena when she said that it would be better for them to purchase a home versus renting a home. And I get that. I wouldn't want to rent anybody else's house for 2 years at least, because that's what she's talking about, 2 years. I would want to have my own property if I had the means to do it. The other thing about that is when they talked about the size of their other home, Willie was very straightforward. They lived in a mansion, an 11,000 square foot mansion with a it sounds like a sauna spa situation. Steam room is what I think he alluded to. So yes, to go from that to a traditional home in the Jackson area is probably not in their best interest. They probably should, if you have the means, go ahead and set up yet another asset that is technically yours, and you can sell it later, when you decide to return back to the Northeast. So, I was kind of riding the fence. On one hand, I kind of saw where Willie was coming from. I think they needed to have a serious conversation about the level of commitment and what it is that they're talking about doing in the short term / long term time frame. But they also need to talk through, Willie's current situation. He's talking about, continuing with his commentary and the things that he's doing at this point to earn an income. And I can't see why he would stop that just for a project that she's doing, especially a project like this, as well intended as it is. But at the same time, you know, it is time for him to support her on some levels. So they definitely need to talk through what does that look like, and him supporting her through this project, you know, whether he's traveling back and forth and she is still staying in Mississippi. And I would wonder how this is going to feel for their kids. You know, to go from New York to Mississippi is undoubtedly a culture shock for them. And so for Willie, for the kids, they're going to have to obviously figure out how to navigate this new situation. So, you know, that was my number 2 moment of the night, all things that centered around Akeisha. Now, my top moment of this episode goes to Glen and Lateshia. You know, the age-old question of, do I take him back or do I leave him on the curb? Now, this episode really dove into the challenges of the relationship. I can hear some of my fellow watchers' thoughts about this as to whether or not it was fake or if it was real, or why are we rehashing this because it seems to have been an old affair. You know, I don't know. I thought it was real. I perceived it to be a real situation between those two, and that he was trying to truly work his way back into her good graces. Do I think she should trust him? You know, I'm with her. I think she's going to have to look for him to show her the sign, to give real cues that he is committed to their relationship. I think he clearly, truly has a problem, and I don't know that he is done with that problem just yet. But, you know, we'll see how that unfolds. Should she take him back? You know, I think her mom summed it up really well, right? That the affair itself is like a misdemeanor and the production of a child would have been a felony, right? But that is a decision that they're going to have to make as to whether or not, you know, one person takes the other person back. You know, they have a child to consider. I think that is definitely one of the things weighing on Lateshia is, you know, the fact that they have a child together that they are raising. And so, you know, does she give up on this relationship because of his past behavior, or does she give it one more shot because they have a family together? I don't know. You know, I don't know. He was good. Like she said, very charismatic, very convincing. I could see why she keeps falling for the okie doke. But I think honestly it's just time, and that she has to maybe consider giving him time to prove that he will not repeat the issues of his past, and that, yeah, she probably should also go to counseling therapy with him if she is truly there to ride this out until the end, so that she would know that she has done everything that she could do in her power to make this relationship work, right? There won't be any questions about, well, what if, and if you had done this, and if you had gone to this session with me. There will be no questions around that, because she will have done everything that she could have done on her end to make things work. So that was my top moment of this week's episode. And folks, I just want to thank you for watching this video. Leave your thoughts and comments down below. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next video.